Well, good morning, everybody. I just thought with spring now having arrived, it's a good time to think about putting up some bird boxes. I've got quite a few bird boxes here on the farm, mainly tree swallow and bluebird boxes. They're basically the same kind of box that both those birds will utilize. I've also got kestrel boxes up. I've got about 3 of those, and I've got a few other types of boxes as well. One of the other bird boxes I put up is one for the great-crested flycatchers. These are our largest flycatchers that live in the area. They come back here in the spring and stay all summer and then head away in the fall. They're a very attractive bird. They're a medium-sized bird, about the size of a robin, and they tend to live inside the forests or on the edges of the woodlands. And they have a distinctive call that's very obvious when you learn it. But they're a beautiful bird with rusty coloration on the feathers, and then they have a pale yellow belly. And they're an insect eater, as the name flycatcher denotes, but very nice bird. But they're one of the few flycatchers also that live in cavities, tree cavities. So a typical box design that you'll see for great-crested flycatchers is one that looks like this. And that's what I built this box for, was the great-crested flycatcher. It's a fairly simple box to make, very simple actually. Most of the wood is standard 1x6 pine planking. There's a couple other sizes here. The back and the top are 1x8 pine planking. So the floor is also 6 inches wide, or 5.5 inches wide, and then it's about 4.5 inches high, just to fit in the space here between the backboard and the front board. The backboard and the roof, as I mentioned, are 1x8s. Yeah, so this roof is a true 1x8, wide and 10 inches long. And I've got a little bevel on the front just to make it look better and have the rain drip off easier. The underside of the back of the roof has a groove cut into it, and this enables raindrops when they come down and start to curl under. Instead of going back into the house, they hit this groove and then they drip off. So in this case, where I didn't make the backboard part of the mounting procedure, I actually just attach another little board with screws, and then I can screw this into the post or whatever. Now this house, because the front is held within the two sides, or between the two sides, and it's mounted just with a couple screws opposite each other, so that enables the front to swing open for cleaning, which is something you need to have on a house, whether it's the front that opens or the side that opens. You'll see both styles. Now another thing you want to do on a house that you make is make some shallow grooves in the wood below the hole. And you can do this with a cut-off saw, or you can do this on a table saw. Doesn't matter what you use really. These should be about 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch deep, and scarify the surface below the hole for a few inches with these grooves. That just enables the birds, especially when they're young, to be able to get up towards the nest hole for food when they're trying to beg for food. Helps them get up there a little easier than trying to cling onto a smooth board. Typically you want the floor to be recessed up under the house a little bit, again just to enable water dripping off the sides and the front to not go up under the floor. You'll also note that I've cut off the corners of the floor just a tad on each corner, and that's just to enable drainage in the event that, you know, you may get a really heavy downpour, a thunderstorm or something, and if rain gets into the hole in a big way, which it might be able to do if it was blowing the right direction, that would enable any water that gets in here to leak out quickly, as opposed to just coming in and meeting a tightly bound bottom where everything fits really tight and maybe actually accumulating in there. It also allows a little bit of ventilation in the heat of the summer, allows cooler air to move from the bottom upward into the box as well. One of the most important things about this house is the hole size. Now, for great-crested flycatchers, they recommend a hole of 1.75 inches in diameter. One of the reasons they use this hole size for great-crested flycatchers, it's big enough for them, but a little tight for starlings. And then as far as mounting the box, you'll probably want to have it up in the anywhere from 8 to 15 feet or so. And I guess ideally you might have a pole perhaps somewhere that's got trees around it and not far from a forest. Ideally this would be a pole that's a little bit out in the open, away from a lot of dense shrubbery where squirrels and things are likely to get in here. So the ideal situation might be something like a hydro pole that's, you know, not too far away from a forest edge, but have a few trees around as well, but not real dense shrubbery all around the pole. The other thing you can do is put some metal wrapping around a part of the pole that would just help prevent squirrels from maybe climbing up the pole and getting into the house. You can also place these on the sides of wooden buildings such as barns and sheds. Again, preferably near a forest or a woodland not too far away. If your barn is way out in the middle of a field, you're not going to get any great-crested flycatchers there. You have to be near a forest or a forest edge or woodland, or have a fair number of larger trees around the barn that, again, isn't too far from a forest. That's the kind of habitat great-crested flycatchers like. Otherwise, you can mount them on trees. You would want to ideally probably put it on the side of a fairly straight tree, preferably a larger tree, I guess, because if you put it on a small tree, those trees grow bigger faster, and then these screws that you use to attach it to the tree, the tree starts pulling them in tightly through their mounting board, so within a few years it's sort of falling off anyhow. So trees are not always the best things to put them on. Now if you find a dead tree that's recently dead and maybe broken, but it still goes up 15 or 20 feet, those can be good opportunities to put a box on, because likely the tree will still stand for, you know, 10 or 15 more years. And because the tree is dead now, it's not growing, so you don't have to worry about the tree growing outwards and pushing the box off of the tree. So those are good opportunities. If you have access to metal poles, you could put a metal pole up in between some trees, have it far enough away from the trees again to avoid the squirrel issue. But so if you have an opening in the forest, maybe a 20 or 30 foot wide opening in a forest, and you can put a metal pole in the ground there and have this mounted, say in that 8 to 12 foot range, that would be a really good situation to mount one of these houses. Anyhow, I just thought I'd go over some of the dimensions of the great-crested flycatcher box. And if you know that you have some around your house, or if you're near a forest, it might be worth trying your hand at one of these. Now, I should say that we've had some great-crested flycatchers here nesting in one of my standard tree swallow boxes that I put up quite a few years ago. It's just an old gray thing. I actually need to replace it. I may replace it with this one this year. It's starting to fall apart, but they've been in love with that box for some reason for a number of years now. It's a beat up old thing, but it's the standard dimensions of my typical tree swallow box, so it's smaller than this, although it has a bigger hole because a squirrel chewed a big hole in it one year, and it enabled the great-crested flycatchers to get in there, and they seem to use it. I'm not sure how successful they've been, but just thought I'd mention that. You don't necessarily have to have a bigger box, but this one has a bigger box and a bigger floor, and this is the typical dimensions that you'll see listed in the in most of the information you'll see online about them.